Were you able to, and if so, how did you address your pillars of health?
Badly, apparently. I think I'm pretty healthy, but I don't meet your standards.
The volleyball community in Central Park, where did that start for you?
I always liked playing games. I'm good at delayed gratification, saving money for the future, exercising so maybe I won't die or fall apart later.
We talk about social health.
I joined two men's groups during COVID, Zoom men's groups, and they say you perk up when you talk about volleyball, the scene.
The intellectual health definition for me is being curious.
I've never been an intellectual who wants to read the whole book. I'm a little shallow and like to read the cliff notes, but I've always liked learning a little bit about things.
Welcome to Pillars of Health, where we discuss the important components to being healthy. My guest today is a 19 times Emmy Award-winning news journalist who has also won 5 times National Press Club awards. He spent almost 30 years on ABC.
Give me a break.
He's written 3 best-selling books: Give Me a Break, Myths, Lies, and Downright Stupidity, No They Can't. And now he produces a weekly show on YouTube called Stossel TV. So please, welcome my friend, John Stossel. The topic today for him is going to be how, in the pursuit of business career, were you able to, and if so, how did you address your pillars of health? So that's what I want to talk to John about.
Badly, apparently. I think I'm pretty healthy, but I don't meet your standards.
My standards sort of vary depending on the person. So I guess that's what we'll talk about. But before all of that, I want to sort of dig deep into how we met. The volleyball community in Central Park, where I, by accident, found beach volleyball in Central Park in 1997, walking from where I worked at La Palestra on the Upper West Side, West 67th Street, to the East Side where I lived, and happened to see people playing volleyball, and thought, that looks like fun, I could do that. Having been a hurdler and a high jumper and all that, I thought it was easy to play. Of course, I sucked in the beginning, but stayed with it for as long as I have, and now it's an obsession. Where did that start for you?
Obsession is weird and accurate, and I just had some time in my late 30s, and I thought, I've always liked this game, and I'm going to try to learn it. So I went to Central Park on the asphalt where the games were then,
That's
which
where I
is why I just had my knees replaced.
Me too. Well, not replaced, but yes, my knees are, we all.
Bad, yeah.
Yeah.
And I took shit from the Dominicans who did not want some older white guy. They were like 18, 19 playing with them. But I stuck it out because there's something about it. There's the motion of the ball and
the outdoors.
I've loved. I don't see why everybody doesn't love it, but they clearly don't. And I continue at age 75 to come down here to your house in Delray, Florida, so I can play in the winter.
That's how much you love it.
Yeah, there's limited stuff 75-year-olds can do, but on the sand, well, I can't play soccer anymore, but I can.
True.
2 steps and a dive covers the whole
Covers
court.
the whole court. No, it's true. The sand is definitely more forgiving for all of us who suffer the aches and pains of hard surfaces. All through your journey of professional path, was health and fitness a focus of yours? You know, the years that you spent at ABC and...
I mean, not especially. I always liked playing games and soccer or touch football, and I see social as one of your pillars. I'm not that social. I don't love hanging out in noisy crowds, but I never minded going to the gym. So it's not like I like it, but because I don't hate it and I know it's good for me, I'm good at delayed gratification, saving money for the future, exercising so maybe I won't die or fall apart later. So I always did something almost every day, and then often it was just that knowing I'll feel good later that pushed me.
Now, childhood, let's go back to, when you were growing up. Were you much into sports at all?
I was into it, but I was little. I have little genes and late maturing genes. So I went to a high school with 1,200 people, and the only team I could make was the wrestling team, and I wrestled at 95.
95
First, I
pounds.
didn't even have to diet to get there. But wrestling just isn't fun like basketball and the other sports are. But that's pretty much all I did.
Yeah, sports. Was weight training even a thing
No.
for you? No. And now, let's talk about what's going on and your sort of health and wellness overall.
So, knock on wood, I still seem to be pretty healthy. I have low blood pressure,
Nice.
and I either play volleyball
Mm.
or I go in the basement of my building. There's a gym where you've trained me,
Yep, yep.
and I do stuff there. Often I like to vape marijuana, and then I just daydream, and I'm happy to
It calms
stay in the
everything
gym
down.
for 90 minutes.
If that's the incentive to stay in the gym, then yeah.
But it's weird because now I'm getting PT because of the knee surgery.
Uh-huh.
And I do an hour with the woman
Yeah.
and a trainer at one point. And
Uh-huh.
after an hour, they say, okay. And I say, but we haven't done much.
Ah.
I'm going to go work out another half.
In
No,
addition
don't. That'll
to-
be too much, they say. So I'm curious
Interesting.
to hear your
Yeah.
take on that.
Yeah, the idea of sort of limited amount of activity post surgery is something that I think practitioners, many of which are using extreme precaution as their reason for limiting your activity. Meaning they don't trust you to do the right thing, so they say don't do anything at all past what they are telling you to do, right?
But my surgery was on my knees. Why not
Why not the
exercise
rest
my upper
of
body?
you?
Yeah.
No, you make a great point, which is something that at La Palestra, where I was for 25 years, we, as a team of health professionals, debunked that whole sort of theory of do less, preserve yourself, don't hurt yourself. Rather, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no reason why you shouldn't have been doing more upper body work or specific exercises for the hips or other parts of the leg that didn't affect the knee. And you did, it sounds like.
I do.
You did the right thing.
Watching TV at home, I'm doing leg lifts, stuff I can do on the
Yep.
carpet.
Yep. And that's what's enabling you to now come and play volleyball, isn't it?
Well, we'll see. I tried yesterday, and it seemed kind of okay.
Volleyball community, let's talk about that, right? When we talk about social health, do you find that that's sort of giving you that social circle, that community?
I guess so. I joined 2 men's groups during COVID, Zoom men's groups, and they say you perk up when you talk about volleyball and the scene.
As I do.
But, I'm friendly with you and the guy over here who's watching.
Right? Kenny's in the background.
Right.
Shout
but,
out to Kenny.
I'm much older and different interests, and I can't say I've made a ton of close friends via volleyball.
But you do.
The women are much more social, and at my age, physically I'm the strength of a woman, so hanging out more with them lately.
I'm with you. Some days I feel like that myself. No, look, these women are ballers. Let's not get twisted. These women are ballers. So if we're hanging with those women, we're okay.
I
Right?
agree.
But I would say that volleyball community has been such a healthy component for me, right? I'm an introvert. It may not be obvious to many, but I'm quite an introvert. So to have those friends that I've made over the last 20-something years through volleyball, who are my circle, my community, volleyball,
And tell me about introvert, because on the court,
I'm the
for
most
those of you
vocal.
who don't know, the loudest guy will be Kofi screaming, "Yes!" or calling out the
Or
score.
calling out the score loudly, right?
Right.
I'm quite vocal and expressive and animated, even as I am probably now, right? That's different. I'm performing.
And for me too, I can perform, but to just hang around and talk to people like he seems to,
He does that naturally, right?
I don't do it naturally. I
That's
know
the
you
introvert.
neither.
That's the introvert in me, which I've improved on. I mean, my profession over the last 30 years as a health and fitness instructor, where I deal with people one-on-one, it's made me much more able to deal with people on one-on-one, very sort of real, emotional, or whatever level. So I think I've worked on it a lot. But the natural me, I know me, I'm the guy who, in a room of 20 people, is anxious about talking to people, you know? But I make the effort. I go into performance mode. So this community has definitely given me that, which is friends who share the love for the sport. And it's also given me something that at this point in my life, similar to you, it helps me still be able to do activities that don't damage my joints as much as the other activities that I was doing earlier in my life. You know, the sand is more forgiving. Social health, yes, need to work on that. Intellectual health, let's talk about that now. The intellectual health definition for me is being curious about things in the world and learning and broadening your horizons. You, as someone who's been, you know, in the media for as long as you have, you've learned quite a bit, right? And you continue to?
think so. Every video I did, 2020, I would do a 15-minute story every 4 weeks. When I was a local reporter, we would do 1 or 2 a day. And you have to learn quickly about stuff so you can not seem stupid. And now I am free of bosses, finally, and make my own videos, release one every Tuesday. And so every week I have to learn about something. And then I write it and double check it, and it turns out what I thought was so often is not, and have to correct it before it goes out. So I'm forced to learn. I've never been an intellectual who wants to read the whole book. I'm a little shallow and like to read the cliff notes, but I've always liked learning a little bit about things, and my job keeps me healthy that way.
Yep. And that's such a healthy thing. I mean, most people probably don't think of that as part of their health, but it is. So yeah, all those pillars have to be addressed all the time. Now the question is, how do we do that? How do we do that consistently? You know, how do we stay physically healthy, emotionally healthy, intellectually healthy, and socially healthy all the time? And that's something we all need to figure out, and we have to make an effort.
And my answer is, I don't know.
It requires, first of all, self-awareness. First step, you have to be self-aware enough to know that you lack these things. Then the next step is now finding out how to improve on them. The physical health part of it, let's break it down, right? Physical part of it is exercise. Obvious. Gotta exercise regularly. The types and the frequency and the intensity, that can vary per person. Eating healthy. Now also that varies. Are you vegan? Are you vegetarian? Are you carnivore? Are you this? Are you that? There's so many different methods in which one will argue that this is better or that is better, but ultimately it's about each individual knowing what is best for them. And if you don't know, there are professionals who can help you, right? So nutrition, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, stretching often, not drinking alcohol, if at all, which is where I am at this point, not drinking alcohol at all, at worst, limiting it to a very minimal amount. And that's something that I'm sure the audience is like, no, can't give up my alcohol.
I mean, I had a strange experience with alcohol in that I always loved the buzz, and as a shy person, socially uncomfortable. And this surprises people because I seem comfortable on TV, but I've written a script. I know what I say is interesting and it's going to be illustrated with pictures, but if you ask me, well, what are you working on now? In the spur of the moment, I won't even remember. So I struggle with that. But with alcohol, I didn't give a shit. I was just much more comfortable. And what I found is that it would really work for an hour, and then it start to lose it socially, and then I try to get it back. But you can't get it back. And I read research on this later that, you get a nice buzz after 2 drinks, but the third drink just makes you sleepier usually. And from age 18 to 60, I had 2-3 drinks every night or more. And then I started to realize that, this isn't working anymore. I'm not getting the buzz. I'm chasing the dragon. Heroin addicts, it's often that phrase used, that they don't get high anymore, but they're looking to recapture that first high. So I said, this isn't working. I should stop. But it was, I kept chasing it. I still, now, well, let me have a martini, and it makes me feel
Feel a little
good.
so-
When I'm with you guys and it's all noisy and we're playing poker or something, I'll
Yeah.
keep drinking. To the point where I once
You lose
passed
your
out and
money?
broke my jaw.
Yeah.
Were you there for that?
I
event?
wasn't, because I would remember that vividly.
Right. So now I don't drink every day, but I do still have. I shouldn't. I know. I'm not meeting your pillar.
Dr. Andrew Huberman, who's a biologist for sure and an ophthalmologist at Stanford University, who says alcohol of any amount actually is so toxic to the body and causes you such damage to not your physical but the mental, cognitive health.
It dries you out.
Is there a healthy, if we were to say, Andrew, you're wrong, is there a healthy dosage? And yeah, is it a 1 drink a week? 2 a week? I don't know. Because, and I have this discussion with clients all the time, because they will bark back at, but wine, as they've researched, a glass a day is good for you.
But now they're taking that back.
They're taking that back, aren't they? Right? But for those who love wine, that's their mantra. Glass of wine.
Right.
Yeah. For those in Italy somewhere who are living to be 100, no, not the stressed out, city dweller who isn't eating healthy as well.
They're eating a lot of grains and beans and boring stuff.
Quality of life, right? Not duration necessarily. So for me, at 55, soon to be 55, my goal is to be as healthy as possible for as long as possible, and then just cut, hopefully. Meaning I'm healthy, and then something takes me out. And it's not going to be something that I neglected to address.
And how old are you when this happens?
100. And I'm playing volleyball till then.
Good. Yeah, I don't have a date, but I think it's pretty unlikely to get to 100. And the women outlive us by 6 years. Maybe, or maybe they just live longer because they're genetically different.
That they are.
And we men die more in motorcycle accidents and other stupid stuff we do in our 20s. And women go to the doctor much more, but there's so many false positives. They go for more tests, and some of those tests cause more problems than they find. So it's hard to know what the reason they live longer is.
Yeah, but genetics definitely has a part to do with it. All I know is that we have some control of how well we live, the choices we make. And that's why the pillars of health matters to me. I'm trying to preach it. I'm standing on the pulpit preaching pillars of health, pillars of health. You gotta focus on this thing.
I once did a 2020 story at a time when there were all these stories in the news about how men do better after divorce. Cheat our ex-wives when we hide money, and the women suddenly are broke and having to start over.
Yeah, in that sense.
Women are victimized by men's stuff.
Yeah.
But then some psychologists looked at men and women after divorce and said, women do much better emotionally and physically after divorce.
I can see that.
And the reason he said was that the women on average had 6 friends with whom they shared intimate stuff with. And the men on average have 1, and it was usually the ex-wife.
Which they've now lost. Yeah.
And this made sense to me, because being an introvert and seeing how my wife is on the phone and the girls are talking to each other all the time, it's not me. That I, after that, made an effort to start having a men's group, have 6 guys. We were forced to meet once a week to talk about stuff, and I never wanted to go. Oh, shit. But I always felt good afterward. It enriched me in some ways. And as I mentioned, I continued that during COVID, where I thought, as I age, I'm really going to isolate, and that's bad for us guys.
Yep. Social, intellectual health, yeah. But it also actually had me thinking of therapy as a necessity, communicating the thoughts and feelings, which men don't want to do. Right?
No.
Right?
But are you saying paying a professional therapist?
Sure. Right? I mean, talking to your buddies and all that, cool. But I think a professional will dig deeper and figure out what it is that ultimately will help you be healthier. Let go of whatever it is that's bothering you. which is something that has been taboo. It isn't anymore. I think therapy is not one of those sort of taboo words and things that people are not willing to discuss. I think it's important.
Certainly in New York, but here, are you in therapy here in Florida?
I have been. I have a conversation with someone who, in fact, at La Palestra, we have a therapist that I worked with for a long time. She's part of the team of professionals that are provided to each of our clients, because we address, as I am doing with Pillars of Health, at La Palestra, all those health components were addressed, and she being one of the therapists who I've communicated with in the past, yes. And something also, as a Ghanaian, wasn't even a thing. The idea of talking about your feelings and discussing and all that wasn't a thing. So later in life, I made it a thing, you know, knowing very well that there was a lot that needed to be, you know, let go, discussed, improved upon.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It is. Let's talk about nutrition alone, right? The amount of work that takes. And the reason why I now have empathy for those who don't make nutrition a priority, because it's exhausting to think about and plan for and work on your nutrition all the time, right?
And don't we have to make choices? I mean, how much difference does it make if you just eat a variety of stuff versus what you're doing, which sounds awful to me, tiresome, nitpicky.
Right. If it were that easy, we wouldn't have a problem.
Or listening to the volleyball women. Oh no, you can't eat this. You eat this instead, and it changes every
2 minutes, every whatever, right?
Right.
Yeah. So the complexity is in the fact that we have so many choices. The simplicity is should be, as it is for me, is in the narrow it down to the 10 things that work for you nutritionally. Because ultimately, what are the other variations, right? Proteins, okay? Right? Choose one. Choose a couple. Vegetables. Choose a couple. Beans, nuts, fruit. What else? Not much else.
And try not to eat the chocolate and ice cream until after 9 o'clock.
Right? So yeah, I mean, the things that, and I'm as guilty as anybody else, people who know me will say in the past, how is it that you're able to consume all these things that are considered unhealthy and still be as fit as you are, right? Because I could, because I worked out a lot and I was young enough and had good genetics or whatever. But now, no, none of that. Like the ice cream and the donuts and the cake and all that, no, none of that. Because I now am saying to myself, it's not worth the health risk, the long-term health risk.
But it tastes
So good. But so, I'm sure those guys who are doing this too, they're saying, oh, but that feels so good. For me, it's no different. It's an addiction of sort. It's a need to satisfy a craving. Not that you're doing it for a health reason. That's a different mindset. At least I have that mindset, which is I want to be incredibly healthy. So anything I consume has to go towards that. Right? So it shouldn't be that complicated, meaning protein, vegetables, fruit, beans, nuts.
But then stopping is the hard part. And I'm not going to give it up. I like those cookies. Sometimes I binge. How much difference is it going to make?
You're making your life. It's a good question.
Right. I mean,
It's a good
maybe I get heart disease a month sooner.
No, it's a good point, and I've thought about that. Ultimately, you have to decide, how does it make you feel, right? In your case, you feel good, you enjoy it. It's not diminishing your lifestyle and your quality of life. You're still
Maybe
active.
in the morning a little bloated.
But those are the decisions you have to make. Do you not want to be bloated? Then you choose otherwise. That's really, everybody has to decide what is for them. And as I said, I used to be able to indulge and be relatively okay. Yeah, I also had some discomfort with milk and sugar and things like, but I erased it as I enjoyed it enough to deal with the consequences. Not anymore. Not anymore. My health matters more, and I feel better not doing those things that are unhealthy, like having a drink, right? Having that social drink, I only did because it was a social thing to do, not because I enjoyed it. And the way I felt afterwards wasn't enough of an incentive for me to continue. So
When did you stop?
it's been, recently. I mean, I've always been sort of a social drinker. The last was when I went back to New York in the summer.
Yeah, in New York, I remember you drinking. Yeah.
Yeah. So last year, let's call it,
Oh.
right? And I don't miss it. I am planning to make this Pillars of Health an ongoing discussion with others and sort of get a sense of what it is that everybody is making their raison d'etre, their reason for making themselves healthy, and how they're doing that.
One thing that I would think makes a difference is the competition motivating you to do it more. That it's one thing to go exercise in the gym, but that I know I can go back and I really want to play harder.
Yeah.
Because if I don't play well, they're not going to want to play with me.
That's a
I'm going to bring the
motivator.
game down.
That's a motivator, right?
Also, I played volleyball here in Florida with some woman who was an occupational therapist working with the old people who moved to Florida. And I asked her, so who does well after, as they age? She says, women. Who does the worst? Men who used to run things.
We used to run things that's in companies.
Right, because now
Or
they've lost their
businesses.
power and stuff. And the exception to that, I think, is the men who golf. That I don't like golf. It just doesn't seem like a sport to me. But they seem to do better because it forces them out into the foursome where they make some friendships maybe, and it
Yeah.
gets them out there.
Yeah. No.
I wish I liked it.
No, you're absolutely right. Definitely the competition aspect, the having something you're working towards, others who share that experience, something that you want to actually be strong and healthy for. So yeah, volleyball. How long are we going to continue, huh? What's our plan? What's our long-term goal on that?
I'd like to die on the court striking a volleyball.
That's the way to go. That's the way to go.
Good. Yeah, I'm not really playing. I've been out for the doctor. I said to the doctor, "How long until I can walk again?" After the double knee replacement. He said 2 days, and that was true. It's kind of amazing,
quick.
but it's how they do it, and because they put stuff in there, and you're just pressing it down. How long until I can play beach volleyball? I guess 12 weeks.
And you're about there.
I'm 14 weeks, so I'm a little disappointed.
In
that,
the-
but my leg still feels funny at angles, and they say it takes people 6 months, a year to.
To really, but you can be in the sand, you can move around, you can pepper, you can do all
Right.
that
Yesterday
stuff.
was my first day in the sand. I could take a long walk and do a little running. That felt great.
Oh, nice. So yeah, we're gonna get on the court. At least pepper something.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pepper, for those of you who don't know, is playing catch with
Pretty much.
with volleyball.
Passing the ball back and forth.
Passing the ball back and forth.
Yeah. Thank you, John, for being my first guest on my Pillars of Health podcast. I really appreciate you being here because I definitely admire you a lot as a professional in your field, and the volleyball in which you, and Central Park in particular, have been an instrumental part of the community. So thank you for being a guest on my podcast.
Thank you, Kofi. Thank you for training me, staying at my house a couple times,
Yep.
and being
Thank
a
you for
good
having me.
person.
I appreciate you a lot. Thank you.